Rev up your engines!
Well, Biden says he's going to invoke the Defense Production Act for electric batteries, and he says he's going to, release the oil. Well, it turns out that the oil that he's releasing is a whopping 5% of what we use. So at most, it might lower the price of gas 5%, 20 cents a gallon or something. That isn't squat, and it probably won't lower anything anyways. Now, this was established, interesting enough, during the Cold War. Maybe we're going to have another Cold War with this Russia-Ukraine thing. Well, they're going to spend all this money sending the military to Europe and giving all the money to the Polish and everybody there to get ready to keep the Russians from invading again. They say it will make us less reliant on foreign stuff and blah, blah, blah. When these politicians get involved in business, they don't know what they're doing. They're just doing whatever they're told by the corporations, make it look like they're changing something, like giving 5% of that oil out of what we use isn't going to affect the price hardly any. It's just patently absurd. It reminds me of that thing the California boards said they were going to do, talking about giving an $800 rebate on cars, free gasoline for the people who live in California, right? Well, they pay so much in taxes and they get a little bit back. It's just nuts. The government get involved in this stuff. It is totally absurd. They don't know anything about business other than what the businessmen tell them, and they're just telling them stuff so they can make money. Why do you think the businessmen give so much money to the politicians to get elected? So they get what they want when they get in office. It's kind of obvious. Well, it looks like Ford's on fire again. Ford Bronco Sport, which of course are made in Mexico, and the Ford Escapes are recalled for a fire risk. They can start on fire. And these are, guess what? The engine I tell you not to buy. The 3-cylinder turbocharged engines. Turns out that the oil separator and seals can go bad. Spray oil and start a fire. Not to mention, if you lose your oil, the engine may blow up. You're not talking about that. But they can't even make them so they don't leak oil and start on fire. I warn people about buying little bitty turbocharged engines. So much technology. And guess what? These things are made in Mexico. Talk about low quality. They just started making the Ford Bronco Sports. And they're leaking oil already. Now they're recalling 392,000 vehicles. So they really screwed up when they built these things in Mexico. Just remember, Scotty told you so, not to buy these things made in Mexico. Well, you're going to regret it. This is now. Imagine what it's going to be like when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. They'll probably fall apart in front of your very eyes. If they're leaking oil already, it might start on fire. Volkswagen is now recalling 100,000 hybrids because they might start on fire. There's a risk of fire in these vehicles. A bunch of them in Europe already started on fire. The recharging of the high voltage battery has an insufficiently insulated battery and wiring going to it to charge it. They can start on fire. Well, what are the manufacturers always doing? Trying to make the wires as thin as possible so they're cheaper to manufacture. Well, they obviously went too cheap, and now, boom, they're starting on fire. There's already been 16 cases in Germany, for example. As I said years ago when people were talking about electrification of cars, back then they weren't talking full electric. They're talking about changing from 12 volt to 46 volts. And they all said, that's going to be the future, don't worry. This was like 10, 15 years ago. And old Scotty said, bunch of crap, that's not going to happen. And what happened? It didn't happen. You know why? 46 volts is a lot more power than 12 volts. You need thicker wires. You need stronger switches. They're going for making weaker switches, cheaper wires. And when they kept trying a 46 volts, guess what happened? Everything started melting. And they said, oh, we'd have to make them too expensive. Forget that. We wanted to go to 46 volts to make them cheaper, but it's going to cost us more. So, but with big electric cars, they got so much power, they can't make them cheaper, but obviously Volkswagen has in their hybrids, and now they're starting on fire. Another reason not to buy one. Katona M says, have you seen the snake oil? Just wondering, have you tried B Eco Fuel tabs? The users claim to save 15 to 30% per tank. Well, I've never tried that particular one, but I made a video a while back on this other one that this company has, and yes, they are just all a giant scam. It will make your fuel and this underlying chemistry and molecular structure come apart and burn better. No, it's a bunch of crap. You add stuff in, who knows, it might destroy your car. When I was a kid, people wanted to destroy cars, they'd throw mothballs in the gas tank and it would destroy the engine. Some people thought, oh, well, that stuff that's in mothballs will make your car run faster. Well, some chemicals might that's in it, but not the actual mothballs. It will destroy your car. I would not put anything in a gas tank. All that stuff is a bunch of crap. People are just trying to sell you stuff. They're scams. The last one I look at, they were selling it out of Tennessee, but the website was like in China, and then there was another place that was in Central America. I mean, they're just scam artists. Don't try any of that crap. You might end up ruining your car. Izzy86 says, I just purchased a 2011 Ford Fiesta for my daughter's 16th birthday. It runs great. It's 225,000 miles. But it has an issue with the tranny. It'll shudder randomly. I know they have issues. You know how you can reflash the TCM without taking it to the dealer? Find any good mechanic that does it. Go to any of these transmission shops. Say you want it reflashed. It may or may not fix it. You got a Fiesta with an automatic transmission of 225. I've never seen one last more than that before it started to break down. It seems to me like it's starting to break down. Hope you didn't pay much for it. If it would have been a standard transmission Fiesta, yeah, those can last a long time. But the automatics, that's pretty much the lifespan unless, somebody's already replaced the transmission. You could try another mechanic at a shop to reflash it. But from my experience, it's just flat wearing out, and that's going to be the end. It would probably be more money than the car's worth to fix it because they're very complex transmissions. Those Fiestas are pretty much disposable cars. They got a certain amount of miles on them. You just junk them when they go. But you could try. You can try to find a mechanic, that'll do it. But like I say, I doubt it. Normally it means it's just wearing out internally. Tui says, I was working on my clutch. It was slipping. I noticed the clutch cover diaphragm springs are bent outwards from the middle and there was scuffing on it. Do you think there's a problem in the vehicle? It has 186,000 miles. If it's the original clutch, they just wear that way. The throw-out bearing pushes against them and eventually it wears on the ridges. Now you asked, should I have to adjust something? Well, those are self-adjusting clutches. They're hydraulic. The one thing is, you don't want them too tight. If they're too tight, then they press on all the time. But hey, it went 186,000 miles, so obviously it wasn't too tight. It would have worn out way before that. But if you want to just make sure it's not too tight, the adjustment on the rod, you can loosen the nut and screw the rod in. Keep screwing it in until you push on the clutch, and then it's got a bunch of slop on it that's loose, and then it hits. Then you would tighten it up so that there's just maybe 1/4 of an inch play before it hits. Then that would be the correct adjustment. But 186,000 miles, the clutch lasted that long, you've got to be a good driver. And what you basically want to do is, when you do replace it, don't just replace one part. Replace the entire set. Buy a clutch kit that's got all the parts in it. The throw-out bearing, the clutch plate, the disc, and if it's got a carrier bearing, anything that comes on it, buy the entire kit. You got to take transmission off, a lot of work. Don't do the job over because some dumb part was too old. Replace it all as a kit. All right, the United States government is probing into Google again, this time for car-related software. They say that if the companies are going to use our Google Maps and you got to use other Google services, they say, oh, it's monopoly. They're saying that Google's forcing them to use other Google apps to use the Google Maps. Well, I don't really care. If it works, I'm happy. Who the heck bothers with the car manufacturer stuff? I use my cell phone everywhere I go. I got an Android, $150 Android, put it in the car, hook this up to it, Google Maps work. Why waste money with the garbage that they put? Like to see now, now you can buy a new car. And it can have Apple Play, and it can have Google and Android. Yeah, well, my phone already does that. Why would I pay extra for that crap when I can just interface with any Android that I can get cheap enough? I like the idea that the Google Maps work. I don't get lost. I get to go places. When you people come to visit me, wherever I am, you get the maps, you get to my house, nobody gets stuck. There's no problems at all, right? So, the government getting involved in this stuff, as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a crap about it. Just like that thing in 2019 that you turn on your Android phone and then Google would be the search engine, right? Well, that's the best search engine. Come on now. Why would you waste time with some other search engine? It's the best search engine. I remember way back when they came out with Bing, right? They said, we're not copying Google at all for searching Google. And then Google put something like 869321 or something, and it was a picture of a horse when you put that number in, right? And then when you did it on Bing, you got the same picture of a horse, which proved that they were just copying. I don't care. They want to know where I am. Great. Then when I use my credit cards, they don't say, hey, your card, that's not you. They know where I am, so my credit card works. I'm happy with it. I don't care if they know where I am. Hey, it keeps me secure, because then if I'm in Rhode Island and some clown in California tries to use my credit card, they immediately send a thing like, well, you're in Rhode Island. You're not in California. Is this yours? I say, no, that's not my charge. So I'm happy with it. I don't care. And the government getting involved in this stuff is a bunch of hoopla. And anybody who wastes their money on the manufacturer's software, you can use your phone and hook it up to an Android in your car or whatever system your car has, and it works perfectly fine. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.